So here we are. Welcome, everyone. We'll wait for a few people going, but yeah, I can see quite a few people in the chat already. That's great. So before we start looking at some chess, I just want to welcome everyone. And yeah, don't forget, if you want to write in and ask me a question, you want to make a comment, then do write in on the chat. And I've got different screens here. I've got a chessboard here. I've got the chat here. And yeah, well, hopefully we can get something together. And so welcome everyone to this Hangout, Power Play Chess Hangout. Usually I do this around about once a month, and sometimes I throw it open to the general public. Sometimes it's just exclusively to some contributors to the channel, but I thought, as it's the World Championship, it would be great fun to get everyone involved. I can see my phone is going crazy already. That's mad. Now I've got two screens. I've got my phone. I've got chessboard, chess pieces flying around. This is it's all a bit crazy. So let me welcome everyone. Oh, I love this. Not Novonum says, on a Champions League night, dilemma. So hello to everyone who's taking part in this from all over the world. Oh, someone says they can hear an echo. Sorry about that. Maybe I don't know. I'm not getting in an echo. Once everything's kind of settled and we're making sure everything's working, then I'll get going. Oh, we got our first question. Andrea Costanzo says, can you tell me two books about strategy and the middle game? A book for a beginner and the other one for the next level. Okay. Let me see. Well, I mean, one particular book that I recommended on my channel recently was this book, which is Attacking Chess for Club Players. That's pretty good, by Herman Groten. I like that a lot. For a beginner, not sure about that. Irradiated Badger says, hi from Montreal. Hi, Irradiated Badger in Montreal. Great city. I love Montreal. I've actually been there. I'll have to think about a beginner's book. Let me just set out the format before we go any further. I would like to look through the World Championship game from yesterday, because I did my 15-minute report, and of course this is far too short to go through a lot of the details. So I thought it might be nice to look at that game in a more considered way and maybe take your questions on it as well. So that's what I'd like to do. I'd also quite like to look at another game. I'd quite like to look at, if we have time, I'd like to look at part of the end game from game 4, because I think that is the game that Magnus will be having nightmares over. That's where he missed, to my mind, the easiest win. So I'm switching between screens here, so let me try and take in your comments as well. So first question is, Not Novonum says, Daniel, what are your thoughts on Magnus storming out of the press conference? Well, okay, let me say about that. First of all, the players are contracted to attend the press conference after each game, win, lose or draw. Magnus was waiting there at the table for about a minute and a half. Not very pleasant for him with the glare of the media in front of him. He was expecting the thing to start, so no doubt Karyakin was busy chatting to people, whatever. So I think this was very badly handled by the organizers. Then Magnus lost it. He lost his patience, he lost his cool and stormed out. Okay, not good, but understandable. Then, as I understand it, he was in a chat with his manager and the host of the press conference, Anastasia Karlovich, about whether he should return. At that point, I think he should have shown good grace and come back and taken part. So I can understand it wasn't pleasant for him. He felt kind of humiliated because he had to wait, but he should have come back. But I think we need a bit of understanding. Let me see. Let me see. AZ Lionheart says hello from Arizona. Hi Arizona. Hi Lionheart in Arizona. Antony Bandarovsky says thanks for your coverage of the World Chess Championship, but are you favouring Magnus Carlsen? No, I'm not favouring Magnus Carlsen at all. If you've seen my preview videos in the run-up to this World Championship, you will see that I certainly said, although on paper Carlsen is obviously the favourite, number 10 in the world, playing number 1 in the world, I thought Karyakin always had a good chance in this match because his temperament is so even, and we saw that in yesterday's game, and because he only needs to just put his nose out just in front, just a bit like in the candidates. It's not like in a tournament where Karyakin clearly is a very solid player, and in a tournament, let's say Vaikonze, he's going to struggle to win those tournaments against the top players. Whereas someone like Carlsen, who can put a string of wins together against some of the weaker players, he's going to be more of a favourite. But in this kind of match play, Karyakin's style is ideally suited. So for that, I always thought he had a chance. Personally, who would I like to see win? I'm neutral on this one. I think they're both complex personalities, and I don't have a favourite. Let me see. Gamers Paradise says, Danny, you play guitar. I do play guitar. I can't lie. Although bass is my favourite instrument. Let me see. Ali Reza Sabag, hi from Iran. Fantastic. Greetings to you in Iran. Magnus, he says, Magnus has never come back from behind. Do you think there might be more chances for Karyak in virtue of the fact that Carlsen will play too sharp? We've never seen this before. Well, it's going to be a fascinating situation over the next few games. It's going to be so interesting to see how Carlsen deals with this. Of course, he's going to have to try to sharpen up. Suritam Sanyal says, what would you give Carlsen's chances of winning the match? No, I don't deal in chances. Bernd in Dingle. Hi, Bernd in Dingle. Fantastic to hear from you. I hope all is well. Oh, wow. I'm going to be in Ireland at Christmas. Unfortunately, not Dingle, but hopefully we'll catch up soon. Fantastic. Greetings to you, Bernd. I probably missed some questions. Zia Dalkiewicz says, could you add in some fundamentals of Queen and Pawn endgames into Game 8's analysis? Ooh, that might be tough. Igor Nielsen says, what's the poster behind me? This poster says Международный шахматный турнир. Международный шахматный турнир. And this was from a tournament that I played in Jurmala, which is in Latvia, in 1985, which was then part of the Soviet Union. And, well, I didn't perform very well. It was my first tournament in the Soviet Union, but my name is on the poster alongside some of the participants, and one of the participants was Michael Tal. And for that reason, I can always say that I was in good company in that tournament. So it's a very proud moment for me, and that's why the poster is on the wall. There are so many questions, so let me try and get to them. me see. I'm just flicking down the questions. There are so many. Ronnie Ronnie Levi says, "Hi Daniel, greetings from Israel. Do you remember Mezag Zegim?" I do remember Mezag Zegim from the Beal tournament. It just, well, to be honest, that's kind of it's Hebrew for zigzag. Roommate says, "What language are you speaking?" Question: Do I speak Russian? Do you know what? I have about 100. I speak Shakhmatny Ruski and Restoran Ruski, and that's about it. But sometimes it's useful. It was useful in Baku to tell taxi drivers where to go. Gernot Zechner asks, "Hi Daniel, I can't handle losses like Carlsen. I'm not sure Carlsen handles losses very well. I'm 2240. I quit for this year because I'm too depressed. Also, I don't sleep well before games. What do you recommend?" Oh boy, that's a tough one. Take a break. Take a chill pill. What can I say? Some people get very wound up, but obviously it's good to be tense before a game, but I guess you just got to channel it. But that's a very difficult one. Ricardo too says, "Hello from Mexico." Do you know what? Special greetings to anyone from Mexico, and you're very welcome to this broadcast. Let me see. Jakob Khan asks, hey Danny, why is chess so boring these days? Do you know what? I've got to say this because there have been so many comments about these games on the World Championship. I have absolutely loved this World Championship match, and I really enjoy all World Championship matches. Why have I enjoyed it so much? Well, if you're following these games live, like I've been doing, then they are so tense. You know, one feels that with every move, one of the players could fall off the tightrope. You know, it reminds me a little bit of, I'm a big tennis fan as well, and it reminds me of a lot of these top tennis matches between, you know, players like Djokovic and Murray, for example, where they're playing from the baseline, and they don't know whether to push it at some moment. Should they push a risky shot? Should they come into the net? In some ways, it's very, very similar, and it's a lot of it's about nerves, understanding when to go for it. And yeah, I've really enjoyed this match. It's incredibly tense, so I don't find it boring at all. And it seems to me that the more you put into these games as a spectator, the more you get out of them. They are incredibly subtle. The fact that the first 7 games have ended in draws, well, from a competitive point of view, each draw has increased the tension. And it's not as though the games haven't been fighting. Okay, we've had a couple of fairly short draws, but even those, you have to see it in the round, in its totality. They increase the tension for the next games. And clearly, Carlsen couldn't take the tension. Let me see. Vinay Pillai in Greetings from India, Mr. King. Hi there, Vinay. Vinay. What do you think of Karyakin's nerves, the way he pulled out against Svedler in the World Cup and then his performance candidates? Well, as I've been talking about, of course, his nerves are incredibly strong. And, you know, he settled into this match incredibly well. And that must be disconcerting. Marco Gert asks, how do you play against Carlsen? Not very well, probably. Let me see. Steve Brandon asks, how do you follow the games live? Which internet site do you watch with engine in hand? Well, to watch the games live, of course, you can go to the official site and you can pay $15 and you get decent commentary, live commentary, and you get a good view of the players. But you have to pay $15. But okay, I would say for a top-class event, not so bad. But if you can also watch on playchess.com, and if you have a premium subscription, you can watch there. So that's actually where I watch on playchess.com. Well, you know, obviously I work for ChessBase, so that's what I do. Do I watch with the engine in hand? Well, I do, but sometimes I like to look through human eyes as well. So I don't use the engine, and I'll try to make up my own mind, and I'll go back and compare. But you have to be very careful using an engine because you're looking at it not through very human eyes. Question, how do I recommend improving the middle game for club level players? Play through games by strong players and try to understand them, but also play through those games without using a computer. There we go. And play as much as possible. That's unbelievably important. There's Abdul Hasib from Bangladesh. And he's a big fan of Magnus. Greetings to you, Abdul Hasib in Bangladesh. I played a tournament there in Dhaka in 1993. And I had a really interesting time. So good to hear from you. Gamers Paradise says you can watch on Chess24. You could watch on Chess24 as well. Sifel says, after last night's win and Carlsen's temper tantrum, it seems like there's a funny correspondence between Carlsen Karyakin and Alyakin Capablanca. I know what you mean. That was also, you know, a very tense game, and the players had to hold their nerve. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just going through the questions. There's a lot of questions. I'm trying to get through more, and I will look at some chess any moment. Just 1 second. Quick slug tea. Shubham Agarwal says, do you think Vishy can make a comeback? I'm not sure about that. Don't think so. I think he's a bit old. LGD1 says, hi Daniel, do you think that Karyakin will switch back to e4 as he is ahead in the match? I think he will switch back to e4 because I think that's the first move that he understands the best, actually. So I'm expecting a switch to e4. Man Lucas asks, hello, Mr. King. Do you think that computers have made chess more boring, or do you find that they've enriched the game? Oh, a bit of both. Okay, listen, it's really nice to have your greetings from all over the world, and I really appreciate that. I think I'm going to look at some chess now. So I do want to look at the game from last night. So and in my analysis, of course, on my YouTube channel, I didn't have a chance to go through from the very beginning. So I'm going to go through from the beginning now. And of course, if you have questions, then please do ask. So if you don't mind, I'm going to concentrate on the chess now, and I'll try and come back to some of your questions, general questions, a bit later. So with a bit of luck, you can see a chessboard. If you could just confirm that. Can you see the board okay? If you can see the board, and if you can see pieces moving, that would be fantastic. Confirmed. Very good. Okay, excellent. So, first of all, someone mentioned online that they could, there was a reference to a game from the World Championship match in 1890 between Isidor Gunsberg and Wilhelm Steinitz, New York 1890, which featured the collar as well. So I'm going to show you that very, very briefly. So Gunsberg was white. So you can see very, very similar to our game from yesterday. It's interesting to see how these guys played over 100 years ago. Well, both sides developed nicely. And here, Gunsberg played c3, which to my eyes is not a very attractive move. One can play like this. If you just think it's a reverse Slav, then it's possible. Well, I would favor a move like a3 here to keep the bishop's diagonal open. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. But c3. And here, Steinitz played e5. I mean, that's not absolutely necessary. But interestingly, this is still quite a reasonable position. But I think this next move of White's shows the difference in standard between the players over 100 years ago in a World Championship match and the standard now, which is incredibly high. I know a lot of people moaning about some of the moves, but I can tell you these Carlsen and Karjakin are playing incredibly well. Here, Gunsberg played h3, which is a dreadful move because after c4, Black has a very clear positional advantage. Well, it's a very typical position actually from the Slav with colors reversed, where this bishop on b2 is a very poor piece. In this position, of course, instead of playing h3, White should play c4. And I think this is a perfectly acceptable position for White. I rather like these bishops, actually. So let's go back. But it's interesting to see how things were played some years ago at the highest level. So here we go. Carlsen with the collar system, which is a great favorite at club level. I don't think particularly challenging theoretically. One doesn't have to play b3. It's also possible to play with c3 and then something like this. So this is a very well-known position. And then it's a reverse Slav, basically, but this is one of the main line positions of the collar. And then you can play either e4, or you can play rook e1 and wait, or queen e2. These are all reasonable moves. One can also play it in the style of a kind of reverse Dutch and play with knight e5 and f4. But b3 is very acceptable. So this is now so-called Zukertort variation, named after Johannes Zukertort, who was also a world championship contender. So yeah, we've gone, no, it's not a London system, Derek McCormack. It is, and others, it is actually a Zucker, it was a collar, and now it's gone into a b3, denotes it as a Zukertort. So it's a well-known system. I mean, this was very popular from kind of 1880s, 1890s, right through into the early part of the 20th century, 1920s, 1930s. But it had a revival a few years ago in top-level chess by Artur Yusupov, who a native Russian who now represents Germany. And well, here Carlsen took on c5, which, well, it's a reasonable move, but much more adventurous is either to play knight d2 or knight e5 immediately. This is how Yusupov played this. Whoops, sorry folks, mouse slip. Crazy IM5 says, do we participate in the chat here? Yes, this is where you participate in the chat, and I'm looking at your comments and questions. But do bear in mind, I'm looking at the chessboard and your comments, so in everything. So I think knight e5 is obviously a much more aggressive way of playing the position, to play a kind of reverse Stonewall Dutch. So, for example, this was a game between Yusupov and Psakis from 1983, played in Moscow, 1983. And here White has a splendid attacking position. I don't think Sakis handled this game very well at all. So that's the alternative way. But Magnus wants to play it a little differently, a little more quietly. Monica says, hi, Mr. King, do you think Magnus was too confident, perhaps slightly bored up till now? I mean, perhaps this is what he needs to really step up, like when Naka beat him. Maybe. I'm not sure he's been bored. I think he's frustrated, and frustrated by Karjakin's solidity, and also Carlsen has found, he's been unable to shake Karjakin out of his steady way of playing. Jakob Khan asks or says, Danny, could Black have exchanged the bad bishop with bishop a6? You mean in this position? Well, let me see. In this position, I don't think that's a good move, because I would be tempted to play knight c6, and after this, well, I quite like my light square bishop. That's one way of playing. Another way would simply be to trade and, well, even grab that bishop. Actually, that's another way. I mean, this knight on a6 is certainly misplaced. And just to play this position, a little something. I don't know. Probably I would go for that. Looks like a better way to play, unless I'm losing the bishop somehow. I hope not. That looks like the way to play. So maybe not in that position. Let's go back to the game. So d takes c5. So Magnus plays in his own way and basically calms things down. And here he played c4, which is, of course, not a bad move. But I was a little bit surprised that he didn't play for e4. This is the, well, the other standard break in the position. And this position probably isn't so bad for Black. On a good day, White may be slightly worse here. Black may be slightly worse. White is getting rooks to the middle quickest. Magnus could have played like that. Of course, it's not necessary for Black to exchange on e4. You could just drop the bishop back. That's probably the most sensible move, to put the bishop back on e7. Can you play queen c7 here? Do you mean queen c7 after e4? Not sure that's a good move. Then e5, that's what White wants. Let's go back. Anyway, we're getting too far from the game. There's a lot to get through. c4. This is taken, I think this was a very good decision by Karjakin. Very pragmatic. It's enabled him to get his pieces out very, very well. And these bishops aren't, the bishops on b7 and c5 aren't impeded. Particularly the bishop on b7 looks very good. Now here's an interesting moment. So the rooks come into the middle. Now you might say symmetrical pawn structure, a bit boring. Actually, with all the pieces on the board, there is so much play here, as we discovered in the game. Caruana, he annotated this game on chessbase.com, and he suggested, he said he thought that rook ac1 was rather a lazy move from Carlsen, and he thought that it was better to try to play for b4 straight away by dropping the knight back. And I think it's a very interesting suggestion. So White is playing for b4. For example, if knight f8, probably not a very good move, then b4 looks like a really nice break. And this is suddenly a little bit awkward for Black. But instead, e5 is possible. And then e4. But after this, f3, so that's protect the pawn, and then you can bring this knight round here, potentially. I mean, that's a double-edged position. But after rook ac1, I think this knight maneuver was very good, bringing the knight around here. And suddenly this is a bit tricky. And I think this mysterious retreat, queen e1 and bishop f1, is an admission by Carlsen that things have gone badly wrong. And here, knight b5 was a very strange move. Probably Magnus should just push this knight out of the way. But here's a big moment in the game. Bishop c6 was a mistake from Karyakin. Well, I say a mistake. It means the game is about level. He could have played queen g5 in this position. Now, I didn't have time to go into my report. There was so much going on in the game. I started later in the game. But queen g5 is a very awkward move to meet. So black is on the attack, basically. This is quite nasty. You know, moves like knight h4 are coming. And if h3, then the knight drops back to e5. So this is another of the purposes of queen g5, is just to cover the knight. And after knight takes, knight takes. Of course, there's a threat to play knight f3 check, but not just that. So if this is avoided with king h1, then knight d3 is a crushing move, clearly forking queen and rook, and of course that can't be taken because of checkmate. So in this position, actually, probably the best that white has is to trade bishop for knight, but that is a very useful long-term advantage, as we know, having the bishop pair. Well, I mean, you could say that, you know, there is still a long way to go here, obviously, but really I would say only two results are possible, either a draw or a win for black. So I think Karyakin played inaccurately. There's a question here. Pierre Charlambeau says, is f4 possible? I don't think so. Be careful when you play a move like f4. This, you can see this opens up this diagonal, and I think queen takes f4, if I'm not mistaken, is possible. Pin and win. I'm afraid pawn takes queen is an illegal move, so presumably that's where you meant f4. Maybe you're talking about in another position. Do you mean f4 here? I think the same applies. No, this one's different because queen f4 allows rook takes. That's different. But in this position, this looks very suspicious. Let me see. Can I play knight f3 check? Let's try and get to the bottom of this one. Here, king h1. Now I could trade queens. What's happening there? Possible. I suspect that there is a thundering move for black in this position. Maybe just queen h5. Let's play it very cool. How's queen h5? Not quite there. Tricky, very tricky, because white now has queen f2. I find this is deeply suspicious for white. It wouldn't surprise me if there is a win here. Black is very close to doing something extremely nasty. We're in this position, knight takes, pawn takes. Does black have a good move in this position? Knight f3. Knight f3 may be very good. Ooh, knight f3. That might be a good move. Don't know. I'm highly suspicious of this. I suspect that black is winning somehow. Here, and then... well, if we want to play safe, probably knight c2. Okay, I think this looks good for black. I think basically f4 in one of these positions is going to be pretty bad. Let's go back to the game. So bishop c6 played, and a4, bishop e5. So around about here, Karyakin has missed his chance. Now, here's an interesting moment where Carlsen, this is the first moment where he could have played pawn takes, and I think this is quite dynamic. Obviously, this would give white exactly what he wants. I mean, black is not going to trade on d4. So that was possible. Carlsen went for it in a different way. I'm going to get to the critical positions in the game because, and you know, Carlsen played very dynamically here. And I kind of quite like the way he played this, actually, even though, of course, it's risky to split the pawns. But I think the way that the game developed, rather, I think Carlsen justified his play. Clearly, rook takes, pawn takes is exactly what white wants. And then there are possibilities to push one of these pawns later. So Karyakin had to duck away from the open file. So Carlsen has achieved something here. He gains control of the open file. The pawns aren't great, they're split, but Carlsen has what he wants, which is dynamic imbalance. Let me see. Let's go on with the game. G3. So around about this point, I mean, I still thought the game was dynamically balanced, but I kind of liked what Carlsen was doing. Now I was very surprised at f4. I thought this might be pushing it a bit too much. I thought Carlsen should have played h3 just to secure his king before deciding what to do next. But I think f4 was kind of an indication of Carlsen's mentality yesterday. You know, he was basically pushing it. He was really pushing it. But the point of doing this was to put the knight back here, which allows the knight to come to a7. Now, I mean, I went through a lot of this in my report, so I don't want to repeat too much. There are a few moments that I would like to cover. So here, again, Carlsen was pushing it when he played h3. He could have played for a draw here. This should be a draw. Black gets a couple of pawns, but it must be a draw. Black can't make any progress. I'm going to press on and get to some critical moments in the game. Greetings to those of you who are just joining me. Greetings. Hi from Norway, Danny. Says Trond Arne Alsdal. Greetings to you. I'm going to get to some critical moments that I didn't have time to discuss in the video. Here, e4, I think that's more dangerous than rook d8, to be honest. And this is a very interesting position. And white has tremendous compensation. I mean, I think all three results are possible from this position. I think that's interesting. But I'm going to get to crunch moments in the game, if you don't mind. Now, c5 was obviously a mistake. And I think this is an important moment. I think rook d7 maintains white's superb central position. You know, if you want a picture of centralization, then this is it. You know, I think Carlsen was justified in going for this pawn sacrifice. I don't think it was a mistake, because here, just nudging the rook back, you know, black is passive here. These pieces are a long way from home. This rook, well, all white's pieces are superbly placed. Feels to me as though this is decent compensation for white. So this was clearly a mistake, and I don't know what Carlsen missed. Interestingly, okay, so here's the moment with the big blunder with Queen D3. Well, I've been chastised for saying that Queen D3 was a blunder. I think it is a blunder. I know he was short of time, and it's understandable. You know, I think Karyakin played this game extremely well. But there's no doubt it's a mistake. Queen A4 was definitely the move. Vandan Shah says, Daniel, please analyze another game. This is already covered in your report. Good point. I am going to go to another game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right to the end of this game, because there are a couple of moments that I didn't have time to cover in my report. And this is right at the end of the game, where this is not a simple position to win for black. But what was interesting was that, you know, Karyakin found a superb move here to win, which was obviously completely overlooked by Carlsen. You know, when I was looking at this, I thought, well, Queen E6, you know, it looks very natural. The Queen is covering A2. It's kind of getting in the face of black's king. Surely there's enough for white to draw this position. This move H5 was brilliant, and the game ended H4, and A2 is a great move. Queen A2, Knight G4, and Queen G1, and this, well, Carlsen resigned after A2, so there's no defense to this. So this is very nice that basically there is no check here at all. It's covered, and if bishop F3, then knight F2 check. Okay, but coming back to this position, instead of H4, what would happen if Queen A6 was played here? And there is a very, very neat finish. So here's my question for you. How would black win in this position? I can see some comments here. There's a Norwegian who is saying, as a Norwegian, I heard, Tic Tac Man says, as a Norwegian, I hope Magnus loses because he's shown a lack of sportsmanship. And I don't think Magnus has the psychology or psychological strength, I guess you mean, to come back. Maybe. I think Magnus is an interesting personality, personally. Well, Queen F2 has been suggested, which looks very tempting considering that there's a knight F3 check, but Queen A3 covers the F3 square, so I'm afraid not that one. Queen C2 being suggested, but again, Queen takes A3 covers everything. Have another go, guys. A2 first has been suggested. No, I'll take that rapidly. So not that one. Knight F3 check. No, I'll take that again rapidly. And well, there's no way you can force the pawn home. I mean, there's going to be a perpetual check if nothing else. Well, I suspect white might be winning, but not that one. Ronnie Levi suggests knight g4 check. I will whip that off in an instant, my friend. Nope. Good job you guys weren't playing the World Championship, I'm afraid. Historygamer.com says queen c3. Yeah, that's the move. h4 is kind of interesting. h4 definitely interesting to prize open the king, but the best move is queen c3 without a shadow of a doubt. Let me go through this one. So first of all, I should say that if check on a7, then here is the sneaky thing. The king goes to h6, and you can give another check, but then knight g6, and this is the perfect scenario for black, because the king and knight complement each other beautifully. That queen simply cannot get another check in around the king. These squares are covered by the knight. And then black just plays queen b2 and a2, and it's all over. So this is the point, that actually this move h5 gave the king another square. This is the trick. This is the very beautiful trick. I mean, there are other variations, but that's basically the one. Well, do we want to see other variations? We could see other variations. Let me see. Actually, this is interesting. After let's say check. Let's see this again. Check here. Yeah, I was looking at this earlier, and with the potential idea of playing here, and now h4 is a really strong move. And there are some beautiful variations here. Let me show you this one. This is very, very sweet. So let's take this and queen e5 check. Hang on a second, folks. King g1, queen a1 check. Now, if king f2, I'm going to play a2. Now, white seems to be getting back in there, but I give a check. King comes up to f3. Now, here's the classy move. Queen g1. This is amazing. This is a beautiful move. Would Karyakin have found this? I think he would have, actually. I mean, it's not so long, not so deep, the calculation. So first of all, the queen defends the knight on g6. If queen takes a2, knight h4 check, and if the king comes up, then that is a very beautiful checkmate. And if the king comes back, then we secure king and queen. That is really nasty. So let's go back. That's the most beautiful variation. Oh, and if in this position bishop takes g6, then you can get a new queen. And because the queen is hitting this queen, there is no discovered check. So white is just lost in that position. So I think that's the most interesting variation. I can see we're running really short of time. Let me just cut out of that. There you go. I'm still here, folks. Greetings to you all. I'll take some of your more general questions, but I would like to cut back and look at a little bit more chess before we go. Let me see. Syed Morteza Nasabi Asal says, do you think Karyakin is playing Karpovian style chess and using that strategy in a high level? Well, you could say that Karyakin's style is very much in that kind of formal Russian style, yes. And he's very good at it. Jakub Khan says, Karyakin has been trained by Putin. Oh yeah, here's a very pertinent and relevant question. Trond Arne Alsdal asks, what's my favorite Premier League team? Actually, I'm going to disappoint you, and I'm going to pick a championship team. I'm a big fan of Brentford Football Club in West London, and they're in the division below the Premier League. Brentford FC, let's go. Come on, you bees. Savid Shinli says, is it true that Karyakin has been prepared by Mamedyarov? Apparently he's been on Karyakin's team, yes. Trond Arne Alsdal likes Leeds in the championship. Oh, big battle. I'm looking forward to Brentford against Leeds soon. It's coming in December. Varaga Piri says, greetings from Armenia. Greetings to you. Who are my favorite chess authors? Well, if you're thinking about my favorite chess books, I could look at I've got hundreds and hundreds of chess books stashed away all over the place. But if I'm going to look at my bookshelf, I'm going to head for my bookshelf here. In fact, the book is falling apart, so I've used it so much. This book I really like. Tal Botvinnik, World Chess Championship Match. By Tal, World Championship Match 1960, written by Mikhail Tal. And this is such an entertaining book. And, well, the other book I really like, I'm looking over here. My other bookshelf over here is The Life and Games of Mikhail Tal. Again, written by Tal, and this is fantastically entertaining. There you go. That's just off the top of my head, but there are lots of books I like. Let me see. Hi New Zealand. Let me see. Anyone else? Let me just take another general question. Jakub Khan says, Danny, what happened to the great English chess from the 1980s? G Media says, just as well you had trousers on. Yeah. There are some really weird questions here. Why have I got long hair? Don't know. I've always had long hair. Can't be bothered to cut it. Let me see. I'm just looking down the questions now. Yeah, but sorry, just coming back to your question about English chess. Yeah, English chess was very, very strong in the 80s. I think, this is a complex question, why English chess isn't doing as well as it did. There aren't that many younger players coming through. Okay, there's David Howell and Garwin Jones, but they're already in their mid and late 20s. But there doesn't seem to be and Luke McShane as well, also in his late 20s. There isn't that younger generation coming through. And I think one of the problems is that there is much more pressure academically for younger people these days. I think, in the 1980s, somehow there was a bit more of, and 70s and 80s, there was a bit more of a kind of hippie mentality. It was okay to kind of bum around Europe or bum around the world playing chess tournaments. It was kind of more acceptable. Now, you go to university, you get a good degree, you try and get a good job, to living costs, living expenses in England are, well, very high. And unless you're a really top chess player, it's really hard to survive. In the southeast of England, buying a house is very, very expensive. So it's a gamble if you're kind of trying to make it as a chess player. So I would say economic factors have played against the development of chess players in England. It's very, very simple. Swami Anandjan says, Dan recommended a book on the Beatles, Revolution in the Head. Yeah, that is a fantastic, one of my favorite books. Yes, I answered that in a questionnaire. Yeah, Revolution in the Head. I love the Beatles. Let me see. Sorry, there are so many questions here. Gamers Paradise asks, this is a good question, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath or Pink Floyd? That's easy. Led Zeppelin. I'm a massive, massive Led Zeppelin fan. Love them. Osgur says, what if we replace 54 Queen A6 check with Queen B6? Oh, we're still on that game. Oh, boy. Let me see. Knight G6 snuffs it out, I'm afraid. Trond Arne Arsdal asks, conservative or Labour? I'm not going to answer that, but if you've got half a brain, you'll realise where my political sympathies lie. Ronnie Levi says, Daniel, do you believe that in the future the computer will become so strong that we finally find out if white can force a win no matter what black does? No, I don't think that. But also, at the moment, computers are so strong that, if you had the strongest chess computer against the strongest human player, the computer should win, say, in a 12-game match. But kind of, so what? I'm more interested in looking at human chess, and this World Championship match is just an excellent example of that. It's fascinating. To err is human. To err is human. To forgive is divine. That's the other bit of the quotation of the poem, which is often forgotten. I'm going to look at a little bit more chess just to finish off. So let me just fish up a game, which, let me see, hopefully I can find this. And something that I didn't have a chance to go into huge detail in my report, which I kind of glossed over. So if you don't mind, I've answered quite a few general questions, and I'm going to go back to the chessboard. So just bear with me 1 second. Here we go, just a moment. Right, here's the position I want to look at. So this was the crunch position from game 4. Karyakin with white, Carlsen with black. And I think this is the game that Carlsen will have nightmares about. Because to me, this is the game where Carlsen had a completely winning position. It's a kind of Carlsen-like position. He should have put this one away, and he'll be absolutely kicking himself. Now, here is where he played f4, and Karjakin set up this blockade that Carlsen couldn't break down. And here I said, well, it would have been better to keep the position fluid. I suggested bishop e6. And here I said, well, it must be winning. But, you know, I didn't go into any detail. But I was looking online, and Nishikiri actually, well, he suggested bishop b7 in this position. And this is a really interesting move. I mean, I think there are many ways that black can try and win this one. But bishop d7 is a very clever move, and this is a kind of Zugzwang position. So here, for example, if white plays bishop d6, this is a mistake, because then in this position f4 wins, because now there is no defense to bishop takes f2 and bishop takes g4. With the bishop on e5, it was possible to block with bishop d4, but here this wins. So bishop d6 is a blunder. Okay, what else is there? Well, if, for example, king f3, this is also a mistake, because you can check, you take on g4, and then king f5, winning a piece. What else have we got? Let me show you kind of a typical variation. So it's very hard for white to make any decent move here. Well, if you block this one out with bishop d4, then the bishop comes back to c7 and comes to f4. And this is extremely nasty, because now the b2 pawn is a target. And this is going to be winning. I mean, I could go into more detail, but you know, that's a problem. So okay, let's look at g takes f5, and this shows what happens in this kind of position where the king has greater access. Now, at the moment, these squares are blocked. These squares are all covered. But just watch what happens. Black slowly improves his pieces. Let's see what happens if white just waits here. g4, check. And this, as you can probably see from my notes, this is the ultimate position. Again, white is in Zugzwang. You can see that this knight has been completely restricted. This is classic play in these kind of positions where you have two bishops against bishop and knight. White has no decent move. If the bishop comes to h4, then the blockade is broken. The king comes in. If the king goes back to e1, then bishop e3. And suddenly, well, it just gets worse and worse. Bishop c1 threatened. If the knight goes back to d1, then this gets hacked off. And the king comes in. Very easy win. And the bishop comes to e3. So, for example, here, bishop e3, threatening here, threatening bishop f4, simple win. If king c2, bishop e3, again, white is just forced backwards. This is Zugzwang. And bishop f4. This is completely winning. Oh, there's one more line which is very clever here. After bishop d7, which is, let's see if I can remember it. I don't think I can remember it. That's great. Not to worry. But bishop d7 is a very clever move. And as I said, white is in a kind of Zugzwang here. I'm going to wrap things up fairly soon. I just want to alert you to a couple of things. So just a moment, if I can find this. Just a second, guys. Nope, I can't find it at the moment. Just bear with me. I'm just trying to send you all a link. The GPL says, hey, Daniel, soon I'll play the #1 of my chess club. I'm #2. And if I beat him, it's very likely for me to win the title. He always plays e5 after e4. Do you have any good gambits for me? No, I don't have any good gambits for you. You don't need to play a gambit to win. I suggest you play knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4, and d3, c3, knight d2, put the knight round to g3, and bishop g5, try and mate the guy. Play, yeah, or maybe h3 and g4, also good fun. Tips for improving chess, says Trond Arne Alsdal. Yeah, play as much as possible and study games by strong players. Very simple. Trond Arne Alsdal says, do you still play? If not, you should. Do you know what? At the moment, I'm not playing. I have family, I have kids, and traveling away too much, as every chess professional needs to do, is just too much. So no, I'm not playing at the moment. I have enough on my plate. Let me see. Let me see. Vapul asked about my favorite double bassist. Yeah, that's a good question. Not sure, actually. Danny Thompson I like. Danny Thompson I like very much. But as for jazz bass players, not sure. Not sure about that. How many family? Kale says about my family. How many? Well, I've just got one family, I can tell you. 2 kids. Rotafana says, what do you think about the Alekin's defense? Have I ever played it as black? I used to play it as a kid. I don't like it. Nowadays, I don't like giving away such space advantage. By the way, folks, I would say that this is part of the Power Play Chess channel, and we provide lots, me and my tech partner, Pascal, we provide lots of free videos, and of course this Hangout is free as well. There are hundreds of videos on our site. If you would care to make a contribution, then that would help us greatly. You can do that via PayPal or on patreon.com. And on patreon.com, you can, according to how much you pay per month, you can pay a couple of dollars, you can pay $5, you can pay $10, and according to what you contribute, then you can, there are rewards. There's newsletters, there's extra videos, Hangouts, and that kind of thing. So if you would care to contribute via Patreon, RK asked, can you make a one-time contribution on Patreon? No, basically, the point of Patreon is for you to make a regular monthly contribution. That really helps us to kind of budget. You can make a one-off contribution on PayPal. I'm trying to get the link to you here. Unfortunately, I can't do that on this chat box. But if you look for on patreon.com and Power Play Chess, that should get you there, I think. We would really appreciate any contributions. And we're trying to improve this channel the whole time. If you could, it would be fantastic. We would appreciate it. I think I'm going to leave it there, guys. I really appreciate your questions, and I appreciate your tuning in. We'll do this some other time. In the meantime, of course, we've still got 4 games to go in the World Championship, and do look out for my reports on the Power Play Chess channel. I'm looking forward to the final few games. I can see there are loads of questions. I'm sorry I can't get around to everything, but hopefully we'll have another of these hangouts soon, and I'll concentrate more on other questions. I can see there are lots of opening questions, and I'll try and do this maybe next month as well. So thanks everyone for your contributions. I really appreciate it, and I will see you soon. Bye now.